the 12th episode / first episode of my knitting podcast. In 2022, I launched the Untangled Knitting Podcast, and I'm really excited to say it has a new name, and it's Curatorial Knits. So I'm really excited because the first episode with this new name is going to be a review of all my knits from 2022. So I'm doing a What I Knit in 2022 video, and I'm calling it Circa 2022. And yeah, I'm just really excited to get into this with everyone. If this is your first time joining the crew, welcome. I am Lily. I'm a curator and knitter based in Oakland, California. I have a really kind of genuine, I would say, enthusiasm for knitting. I'm not an expert. I am just an enthusiast. So I'm always looking for different resources and trying out different kinds of yarn, and on my YouTube channel we talk all about that. And we've also been able to create, I think, a really cozy community of makers. We share affinities for different kinds of fibers, different kinds of projects, and knitting familiar patterns, sometimes in unconventional yarns, or knitting some patterns that are themselves maybe a little unconventional. So, okay, this is how I think it's gonna go. I'm starting with everything that came off my needles this year, and just kind of working my way through. I am going to include, in addition to the show notes on the actual video, I will list out the name of the pattern, the designer, and then the yarn I chose. And I'll be trying on each garment kind of as we go. I have been learning a lot about camera angles for the last half hour. Not easy. It turns out most of the walls in my house have either art or furniture on them. So I'm in this kind of weird little corner area, and I'll be going backwards and forwards just to kind of share different elements of the project, but also hopefully be able to give you a more kind of fulsome view. I will also be including, if I can't remember it off the top of my head, the size of the garment that I knit from, or the size of pattern that I knit for the garment. I am just wearing a pair of navy leggings, which, to be honest, is what I wear a lot of the time with my knits. But of course, I'll talk about kind of how different knits can be styled as well. And yeah, I guess we'll get started. This is the Purpuria sweater by Teti Lutzak. It was my first knit of 2022 and my very first test knit. I made this out of Honor Auch Air's Nutidin yarn held with one strand of mohair, and I really love this sweater. I wear this much more than I thought I would when I first made it. It is incredibly warm. It's Nutidin held double and mohair. And so it's a really quite thick fabric, but of course, because it's Nutidin, it's incredibly lightweight. It doesn't feel heavy or weighed down at all. I really like this little double knit detail on the collar. The collar itself, I kind of just messed up. I don't know if maybe I just cast on too many stitches. It's pretty big, but frankly, I don't really care because I wear this mostly to work. I work in a very drafty, cold, giant space. It's actually a more than 100-year-old door factory in San Francisco in the Mission District, and it's now an art gallery. But it does not have kind of centralized air. We have some heating elements, but it can get really cold, especially in the morning. So I love this sweater because it presents really professionally. I think it's quite flattering fit. I like that there aren't cables down the arms because I can wear it under jackets. And there's this wonderful detail with the split hem here. And I made my back hem quite longer than my front, where the cable actually kind of twists here, and that's something I'd like to do on any split hem I have, I think. I think it just looks so professional and gives such a kind of nice clean look to it. In terms of being my first test, I feel like this was a really great choice because it stretched me. Cables aren't something I do a ton of, so I learned how to cable without a cable needle for this project, which was really great because Newton is so sticky and I didn't have to worry about losing my stitches so much. So this also has worn really beautifully. There's a few little pills, but that's it. It genuinely, I think, looks really clean, and yeah, it's a great one. Next up, we've got some color work. So this is the Goldwing sweater by Jennifer Steinglass, and I made this in hedgehog fibers DK. It's quite a thick DK, and I held my I held the clay color, the kind of beginning of the color work here, in with a mohair. So it is not a super stark high contrast color work that I did. I would like to make this potentially again with a higher contrast potentially, but I do love this sweater. I think I may have made one change where I cast on in blue instead of the other color, and I do quite like that. I also did my sleeves with the blue edging, and then I brought the color work back on the hem, and I think this was just a really successful knit. I should probably make more of these. It just feels, it feels really good. It's I cropped mine fairly significantly, and again, it's worn really well. There's a bit of very minor pilling, mostly where the mohair comes in touch with the DK, but I just think that looks so nice. Yeah, this is a sweater I probably could wear more. It feels, yeah, this feels really good actually. I should probably wear this more. And it's fairly neutral, right? Like, I mean, it has kind of a statement vibe to it, but I don't feel like it's, as you'll see, some of my sweaters have a lot of punch this year. So yes, Jennifer Steinglass, love it. I should make more of these, particularly as I'm trying to go through my stash, and that's a story for another day. Okay, next up, oh my gosh, this is, sorry, I prepared, everything's in like rows, but I didn't like treat any of these sweaters, so this is just how I wear them. And I don't know if you can see that this sweater is absolutely covered in my hair and the hair of my parents' dog. So Pippin, I love you, but you, like me, are blonde and leave things out everywhere. So this is not just the family dog sweater, but also my sweater. It's the Everyday sweater by Drea Renee Knits, Andrea Mowry. Sorry, that will be forever. I'm not gonna do that. It's just a great basic pullover. I wear it all the time. I kind of treat it as an elevated kind of casual piece. I really like the long ribbing on the bottom. I think it's like 4.5 inches. She calls for 4 and I kind of went for it. This though was the project that informed me that it doesn't really matter if you do a tubular cast off in 2x2 ribbing. 1x1 ribbing, I'm great with tubular, but trying to turn a 2x2 rib, there we go, into a tubular 1x1, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. I do really like this neckline. I knit this out of, again, I'll put it below. It's the Ann Davies DK weight yarn, and I think this color is called Overalls. It's her navy. It's quite a true blue, not a lot of greens or purples in it, and yeah, it's a really great staple. I wear this usually with jeans or over, I've worn this a lot actually over dresses, which has been really nice. So 3 down. We're just cooking through this. I would probably make another, I don't know if I'd make another one of these. I'm kind of looking at the underarms. It's like it wants to have a little bit of raglan here. It's a circular yoke construction. I made this, this is size 2, which is my standard size in Andrea Mowry Designs. I really like the top, but if I made this again, I feel like I have more kind of confidence in garment making, and I would probably add in a little mini raglan right here just to draw this up, and not do my increases in a circular fashion here. I mean, it's really nice, but I do think that that would make it feel a little bit more tailored. That said, I'm not getting any puckering or pilling under the arms. There's quite a bit of pilling on the sleeves though, and this monster definitely needs a little depill. But I have worn it a ton, and I'm glad I have it. Total staple piece. I think I also made some decreases in the waistline on this one, and I'm glad I did. All right, next up is another test knit, second test knit of the year, a very different garment, and not a piece I wear super often, but still I think totally worth it. This was like a really fun knit, and when I do wear it, I feel, I mean, it's just very extra. This is the My Time sweater by Lily Kate Makes, and it has these massive, it's drop shoulder construction, and then it has these really massive sleeves that you make by dropping stitches, and it creates this really billowy fabric. I knit this in an alpaca from Juniper Moon, yes, Juniper Moon fibers. It's quite cropped. Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun to wear. It's super drapey. It's a silk top, really. So yeah, I held my Juniper Moon Farms alpaca with a lace, and you can see mohair lace, and that's how I get these nice little speckles. That's not bad, is it? I think this is a piece I'm glad I have one of. You know, it's not something I would need to make multiples of, but again, a really nice kind of statement piece. It's a date night sweater, and yeah, it's really soft. It's really soft, and it's not super hot because of, you know, clearly a lot of airflow in there. Yeah, am I going through these too quickly? I don't know. This is just kind of just going with it. Yeah, so that's the My Time sweater by Lily Kate Makes. And I think this was my first ever drop shoulder construction. Yeah, so I learned something, and that's always fun. All right, next up, this is my Metamorphic by Andrea Mowry, and this uses the Metamorphic yarn from Spin Cycle Fibers. I love this sweater, and it is a pilly mess. This sweater just, I really like it, but I also think it can look really beat up really fast. So you can see how, I think it might be because this is all in garter stitch, but like it gets pulled and caught very often. So we have these little like catches on it. And I think it's because the Metamorphic is a recycled fiber too. It doesn't hold as nicely or as neatly or as tightly a twist as I would have liked. That said, I do think it's incredibly soft. It's really a pleasure to wear. It's not overly hot. And I wear this one a lot to work. It's the contrast color. It calls for spin cycles dyed in the wool, and I took one skein of the Morning Ritual, which is colorway, which is the custom color for Ritual Dyes in Portland. I used one skein of their custom color and then spliced in all of my little scraps of spin cycle from other projects, and I think it really, really worked. I love the way the variegation kind of moves through the piece. Yeah, I just wish that the Metamorphic yarn itself kind of held up a little bit better. Yeah, maybe another deep hill of it would really help. I did do the same waist shaping that I tried to do with the everyday sweater, but I think I was maybe a little too aggressive, and I wish I had given myself a little bit more longer of a rib. I think this pattern only called for 3 inches, but I wish I had gone to 4 just to kind of cinch that in. But another just kind of pullover basic circular yoke, and I also knit this in a size 2. Okay, now we're getting kind of into where I started figuring out how to hold yarn together, I guess. So this is the Champagne Cardigan by Petite Knit. It is my first Petite Knit pattern. Sorry about that, folks. I think all of the setup took more time than I thought, so the battery ran out of steam. But I was talking about my Petite Knit Champagne Cardigan, which I knit in a kind of different combination of yarns. This pattern calls for a fingering plus mohair to make a DK, but I made it into a worsted or maybe even an Aran weight by holding 3 different yarns together. I held the very light DK, I think more like a fingering, Simply Camel, which is 100% camel from Pearl Soho, with a strand of Gather, which is another very light DK, almost fingering from A Verb for Keeping Warm. And then I paired those 2 with a 3rd fiber, which is the Knitting for Olive Super Soft, not super soft, what is it? Silk mohair. So the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, yeah. It is probably my most worn knit. It is also my I get it knit. There is something really satisfying about making something that you wouldn't need to make on your own. I think that when the camera cut off, I was talking about how for a lot of my knits, I like to make things that aren't something that you could get kind of off the rack, that look handmade in a certain way, or that would need to be handmade in order to get the impact and effect. But I think this is, the exception that proves the rule. I modeled the marling and cut of mine, which I did modify the Petite Knit pattern. I changed the raglan quite a bit, just cut it off earlier so that I had more kind of a tighter fit under the arms. And then I tapered it also at a slightly different rate just to kind of keep it a little less billowy for me. And so, sorry, I was saying that I get the impact that you can have, that you can make by creating a garment that doesn't necessarily kind of scream homemade. And this is probably the garment I get the most kind of reaction out of when people do find out that I made it, because it looks like a high-end sweater. So I really love it. I think I didn't do a great job on my buttons. Frankly, my Circa cardigan from last year has a better button placement. These kind of, I loved, now that it's done, the double knit button band I think is really refined. I do think though that it's not kind of perfectly placed. This band feels slightly longer than this one, so I might have just picked up a few more stitches on this side. I think it's one of those things that is not apparent unless I point it out, so I try not to obsess about it too much, but it is not kind of completely perfect. That said, I think that the use of the different fibers held together is super successful. The marl is really subtle. It does pill. I did find that the fluff factor on the Knitting for Olive merino the Knitting for Olive mohair is pretty extreme, but it's also really beautiful. So it's kind of what you get. This is my champagne cardigan in kind of mixed marled fibers from last, early summer. And I don't think these are in exact order, so let's just let that go a little bit, because now I'm looking at this and I'm realizing I might have completed it beforehand. This is oh my gosh, I completely forget the name of this pattern. I'm so sorry. I will write it below. But it's a really fun piece by Midori Hirose. And this is another place where I really played with my yarn choices. You can actually see it much more starkly because I'm wearing a dark tunic underneath. But I started with just holding one strand of mohair and then added a second strand. And then by the time I got to my bust, I added the third strand. So I love that this gives a really lightweight look and feel to the top of the garment, but still provides coverage. This is another piece I don't pull out that often, but I'm glad I have. I was a little worried that the colors would be a little too kind of Eastery, but I've actually never worn it with a dark garment underneath, and that kind of tones that vibe down. This is knit in the Wandering Flock mohair, which is, I think, my favorite mohair. I'm not sure where she gets her blend from, but it is so nice. And I held it with a strand of La Bien-Aimée mohair in the color Vespa. And yeah, it's really fun. That is, I held it one strand and then two strands of the Wandering Flock. So, what is the name of this? I'm so sorry, team. I think the break in the vibe kind of caught me off my guard, or break in the flow. But yeah, it was also really fun to construct the pattern in this way. It's a really different layout and design. I could definitely see making one of these in a fingering weight too, and not just in a mohair. But it's kind of the perfect match for a mohair only garment, is what I would say. Speaking of Wandering Flock, we've got my second Lento. And I should say, I am not going through all of the garments that I knit in 2022 because 4 of them are gift knits, so not pieces that I wear and can try on. My first Lento I gave to my friend Yam, and finally got it to her, I think in November. But yeah, I think the idea for that was to make a striped sweater out of this really amazing fade from the Wandering Flock, and I liked it so much I made one for myself. This is Wandering Flock DK held with 2 different strands of mohair, and I created the slight marling effect by holding the strand of mohair above and below the corresponding color. So with the blue, I held a strand of blue and a strand of pink. With the navy, I held a strand of navy and a strand of pink, and continued throughout with that. I love this sweater. I'm gonna make another one. It's the sweater I've probably worn most often in the past month, just because I treat it like a sweatshirt. And it is the ultimate bougie sweatshirt. It's super comfy, cozy. This is definitely at a larger gauge than the pattern, because the pattern is fingering in 1 strand of mohair, and I held mine DK and 1 strand, so I knit the smallest size in this. But I kept the same size. Did I use a bigger size needle? I think I used 1 bigger size needle. So it's still really drapey. It has a lot of movement. And yeah, I think this is pretty effective. Okay. This bad boy, you guys, if you've been watching the pod, you've seen a lot of the Great Gingham. So this is the Great Gingham Raglan by Jessie May Designs, and I modified the neckline according to a worksheet from Jennifer Patricelli of JP Knits Things. And I really like the finished garment, and I never wear it. I don't know why. I think it looks great. I think it's super wearable. Maybe I'll wear it more in the spring. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. It's pretty flattering. I did extend the bottom quite a bit. I knit this in Spin Cycles, dyed in the wool. That's the color changing contrast color, and that color is Cold Comfort. And then I kind of stepped out of the box, I think, a bit, and picked a very light sport weight for my main color, which is from the Camilla Fiber Company in the color Chicory. I think this is a knit I'm really glad I made, even if I don't wear it, but I'm not sure how much wear it's gonna get. And it might be because I made the scoop so low. I really liked the way it looked. I think it's, really pretty, but it does take some kind of adjusting a little bit. That said, the fit is great. I'm just not, I don't know. I just don't wear it. I brought it on 2 different trips, and I did not wear it on either trip, which I feel like says something, because even on a kind of, when you're traveling, you have a limited space anyway. So I must have gone back to other things. This is my 3rd and final test knit of the year for Amy Shear, and this is the Anne's puff sleeved, which I turned into a t-shirt. Another piece I haven't really worn, but I also think it's because I didn't really get a chance to wear it. It's definitely a spring and summer top, and yeah, I think now that it's done, I might wear it more if it were 3/4 sleeved. I still quite like the puff. And then this is another one where the neckline is different in the pattern. There's a large kind of funnel neck, but I don't love that on the idea of a lighter sweater like this. My plan for this is actually over dresses, which I think would look really sweet. But again, just not the right time for it. We'll see how it goes, if it gets worn or not. All right, now we're cooking with gas. I feel like I'm back on it. And we're on to the final two. This is my Rhinebeck sweater, the Alpen Glow by Andrea Mowry. And this is the sweater I have the most complicated relationship with because I really do like it a lot, and I like the design choices I made, but they also like fully don't work. As you saw me just struggle to get my cuff over my hand, it's because I chose to do corrugated ribbing, which is called for in the pattern just on the bottom, right here, where it works very well. But I chose to do bring the corrugated ribbing up to the neckline and to the cuffs. Big mistake. The cuffs are just too tight. They just are. And up top, I think what happened is what would have naturally kind of eased out is brought in too tight here. So basically, if this were just pink, which is what it would have been in the pattern, then I think the rest of the yoke would just fit better. So yeah, again, complicated feelings. I do wear this quite a bit. It looks really nice actually under a blazer, which is how I rocked it at Rhinebeck accidentally because I hadn't finished one of the sleeves yet. But I actually now really like wearing it that way. I knit this out of the Spin Cycle Dyed in the Wool Ghost Ranch, and then a few more out there choices. The main color is La Bien-Aimée Helix, held with her mohair, and I think this is really effective. I'm really happy with this pairing. Yeah, I think that worked out really well. And then the pink is also La Bien-Aimée, but in a sport tweed. But do you see how like this is just happening? So I'm pulling at it. I'm really bummed, honestly. I feel like, and this is a size 2, and it's a circular yoke, so it's the same. I mean, obviously it's color work, so it's not exactly the same, but it's a very similar construction to these two guys. Also both size 2, and also, you know, with a not exact, but similar 2x2 rib, which again, I feel like maybe the reason why mine is not behaving well on top is because this ribbing just isn't doing what ribbing does, right? It's not stretching. And so this is tightening up, and then I get this little poofy guy. So I'm not sure, frankly, if there's anything I can do about that. I could try to reblock it. I could also unpick the neckline and rip it out to here, or just redo the collar. So basically, I cast on here and then knit down, and next time I would not do that. I would cast on for the neckline and then fold it, because I just don't think, yeah, I think maybe that's where it all went wrong for me, is with the neckline pickup, which is different than the other two circular yokes where you cast on your collar stitches. I mean, I don't know. Thoughts? I'll take them. It is really like a nice, I feel like it's a nice sweater, and it's just a shame that I keep yanking on it, you know? But maybe if I reblock it, that will ease out a little bit and just kind of bring this together. But I do think that there's something up here that's not my normal for this kind of construction. So yes, this was my second to last personal knit of the year. after this piece, I knit a sweater for my son, a sweater for my daughter, and a sweater for my husband, which I will not be trying on. And I think, am I right? I think this is 1 per month for me, which is a kind of cool number. Now you're gonna see me struggle to get this stupid cuff off, which is pretty embarrassing. But this is why we do this, right? None of this stuff is perfect. And don't worry, I'll fold everything nicely when I'm done. Okay. Yay! This is my final object of the year. And, oh, it still kind of smells like my perfume from the last time I wore it. This also has some puckering, but I just don't care. This is the Acorn sweater by Junko Okamoto. I loves it. It is so cozy, so springy. There's such a sense of kind of loftiness with the Nutiden. I replaced the original colorwork section with the Inspired by Ellen colorwork from the Knitting a Good Yarn podcast, amongst many other sources. And yeah, this is still great. Nutiden held with 1 strand of mohair in the white and then held double in the other sections. And yeah, this has not been wet blocked because I just want to wear it and not wet block it. And I love it. I could totally see myself making another one of these with the original colorwork pattern, also in Nutiden. It's incredibly warm, incredibly lightweight. I think I definitely want to always have a Nutiden project on my needles, because it is really a special way to knit and to make things. So that's all. I feel like I probably spoke too fast. We had a weird intermission, and this was maybe, I hate how everyone says everything's chaotic, but it does describe the vibe that just went down. So very all over the place, but I hope a bit helpful in kind of watching the narrative of what my year of knitting was like, circa 2022. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and thank you so much for joining into this kind of revised intentionality behind the title of the podcast. And we are gonna just be spending a lot more time talking about the aesthetic choices that we make and the reasons why, and the background that our materials carry with them into our knitting. And yeah, I think I don't want it to seem too kind of highfalutin, but at the same time, I do think it's really important that we elevate craft work and we elevate our hobby work into something that feels like a artistic practice and a curatorial practice, because curating isn't just about editing, which is kind of choosing things and assembling them together, right? Curating is about deeply thought research and about creating conversations between different elements and putting together a narrative, at least in my experience in the art world. So I hope that that's something I can bring to knitting, and I hope that you'll continue to join me on this journey. Thank you so much for sticking around, and have a really, really wonderful beginning to your 2023. I'll see you soon with what's on my needles for this year. Thanks. Bye.